What value would you place on human life? How significant is humanity to you? I think humanity has great value. Good one, bad ones, mental ill, those who are mentally ill, those who are not doing good, those, no matter which condition they are, they have value. If you are a Christian, you love every man. But there are some people who don't feel that way. And we're going to talk about some people today. I got a man on my screen here. I'm going to talk about him in a little bit. This is Larry Fink. And we have many that we're going to address in today's video. This is Larry Fink to begin with. Larry Fink is the chairman and executive officer of the company known as BlackRock. BlackRock is no joke, friends. When it comes to money, this man got more money than you can count. I'm so serious. He's involved in all kind of stuff. As a matter of fact, I'm going to let this video tell you a little bit about who this man is. Listen.
And if you don't know about BlackRock and how they operate, let me tell you a little bit about them. They're the world's largest asset manager with over $8.5 trillion in assets. They have their fingers in every pie you can think of: big pharma, big tech, farming, agriculture, government contracts, and even recently deals with Zelensky to rebuild Ukraine. Isn't that interesting? Their power is so huge that most of all the woke DEI quotas you see at companies all around the world almost certainly lead back to CEO Larry Fink and his company, BlackRock.
There you go. There you go. So I'm going to tell you what Larry Fink thinks about humanity. Okay? He's going to tell you how he feels. There are some people who really believe the best way to save the world, planets from the resources that are just fading away. According to them, we don't have enough resources to feed humanity. And there's a key term for this. It's called sustainability. When you hear the term sustainability, okay, it's nothing but a death cult. I'm going to explain it to you in a minute. You're going to see what I'm talking about. This is how some of these people feel.
Argue in the developed countries, the big winners are countries that have shrinking populations. Okay, that's something that most people never talked about. We always used to think shrinking population is a cause for negative growth. But in my conversations with the leadership of these large developed countries that have xenophobic immigration policies, they don't allow anybody to come in, shrinking unemployment, shrinking demographics, these countries will rapidly develop robotics and AI and technology. And if the promise, and I say it's going to happen, but if the promise of all that transforms productivity, which most of us think it will, we'll be able to elevate the standard of living of countries and the standard of living of individuals, even with shrinking populations. And so the paradigm of negative population growth is going to be changing. And the social problems that one will have in substituting humans for machines is going to be far easier in those countries that have declining populations. And so for those countries that have rising populations, the answer will be education, and so rapidly developing. For those countries that do not have a foundation of rule of law or education, they're going to be left.
These guys are something else, boy. You cannot be any more demonic than that. All right. He's not the only one. This is actually a school of thoughts among many influencers and rich men. Here is another one. What's her name? This is Jane Goodall. It's a long history, working with animals and everything like that. And listen to what she's saying. Don't listen to me.
We cannot hide away from human population growth because, it underlies so many of the other problems. All these things we talk about wouldn't be a problem if there was the size of population that there was 500 years ago. We cannot hide away from human.
So what does that look like in practice? How do you go and depopulate the world? How do you reduce the amount of people that are in this world? I mean, it's crazy the kind of stuff these people are saying. On this show, Joe Rogan was talking to Elon Musk, and Elon Musk is not for this. He's actually against it. And listen to what he said. He's going to call it a death cult.
Yeah. I don't think you're melodramatic at all. I think I mean, I don't want to be melodramatic, but it's almost like a death cult.
It's a death cult. No, that is exactly right. It's essentially the extinctionists. Like, it's in the limit. It is that they're propagating the extinction of humanity and civilization. And there's some people who are like most of the time it's implicit. They don't but sometimes it's explicit. Like, there was a guy on the front page of the New York Times who literally has the thing called the Extinctionist movement, and he was quoted on the front page of the New York Times as saying, there are 8 billion people in the world, but it would be better if there were none. Ooh. And I'm like, well, buddy, you can start with yourself.
Yeah. Does he have friends? That's what always fascinates me.
Well,
here he is.
That guy.
He looks like you.
Yeah, 8 billion people in the world. It would have been better if there was none. Yeah, there it is right there. I got to find this article. Sometime in the future, we're going to talk about what the nature of the school of thought is behind that. You remember this guy? This video has been scrubbed from the internet. We're not supposed to even talk about this one. I have to actually remove a few words here so we can get through it. It's a video. This video gets your channel strike. And to the point where they will cancel some channels because you talk about this video. But if you kind of mess with the words a little bit, there's ways to get around things, okay? There's ways to get around things. I'm being silly today. Listen.
The world today has 6.8 billion people. That's headed up to about 9 billion. Now, if we do a really great job on vaccines, healthcare, reproductive health services, we could lower that by perhaps 10 or 15%.
Reproductive care, health services, healthcare, and what is that thing they put in your arm? That thing they put in your arm. You know what I'm talking about, the medicine, the therapy. So if you do a good job with that, so what's going to happen, Mr. Man?
Perhaps 10 or 15%.
10 or 15%. That could not be said any clearer.
Well, common sense would tell you if you have a man standing in front of you saying he's going to reduce the world's population by 10 or 15% using vaccines, what does that mean to you? It means somebody's going to die because you put a vaccine in them. It doesn't mean you're going to save people. That's pretty much common sense in my brain.
Me too. It feels that way. I like the way he speaks, though. He's funny. This is Bill Maher, the atheist, a diehard atheist boy. I don't agree with the guy, but sometimes I agree with his view. Sometimes he says the stuff that needs to be said, even though it's uncomfortable sometimes. But listen to what Bill Maher says on the issue of canceling the children in the womb. You know what I mean? On the issue of that, listen to what Bill Maher says. That is exactly what it is, which is, and he went on to say, there's too many people in the world. We need to get rid of them anyway. That's pure honesty. Pure honesty. You're going to love it and hate it at the same time.
I can respect the absolutist position. I really can. I scold the left on when they say, oh, you know what? They just hate women. People who aren't pro-life, pro-choice. They don't hate women. They just made that up. They think it's murder. And it kind of is. I'm just okay with that. I am. I mean, there's 8 billion people in the world. I'm sorry, we won't miss you. That's my position on it. What?
That's quite harsh, Bill.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not
Is
sure
that not your position if you're pro-choice?
Isn't that mainly because you don't like children? I mean,
yeah,
no,
exactly.
no. I mean, but if you are, you said you're pro-choice. That's your position too.
There you go. That's your position too. How can we miss Mr. Dennis Meadows? And we have another video that's gonna talk a little bit more about Mr. Dennis Meadows as well. Remember this? I mean, this is disturbing. And he's been saying this for years. He's been saying this for years. Listen now.
In one way or another, we are so far, globally, we are so far above the population and the consumption levels which can be supported by this planet that I know in one way or another it's going to come back down. So I don't hope to avoid that. I hope that it can occur in a civil way, and I mean civil in a special way, peaceful. Peace doesn't mean that everybody's happy, but it means that conflict isn't solved through violence, through force, but rather in other ways. And so that's what I hope for. That we can, I mean, the planet can support something like 1 billion people, maybe 2 billion, depending on how much liberty and how much material consumption you want to have. If you want more liberty and more consumption, you have to have fewer people. And conversely, you can have more people. I mean, we could even have 8 or 9 billion probably if we have a very strong dictatorship, which is smart. Unfortunately, you never have smart dictatorships. They're always stupid. So, but if you had a smart dictatorship and a low standard of living, you can have it. But we want to have freedom and we want to have a high sentence. So we're going to have 1 billion people. And we're now at 7, so we have to get back down. I hope that this can be slow, relatively slow, and that it can be done in a way which is relatively equal, so that people share the experience and you don't have a few rich, trying to force everybody else to deal with it. So those are my hopes. I mean, these are pretty pessimistic hopes, but I mean, that's what lies ahead.
I mean, he said this with a straight face, man. Like it's a good thing. Like, are we talking about the same thing here? Are you talking about the same thing? The theory of population growth and decline. You should also check out what's going on with China. There has been a decline in the Chinese population as well.
For the first time in decades, China's population has declined by 850,000 people, according to official numbers. That doesn't sound like much for a country of more than 1 billion Chinese, but this moment marks a trend we'll be seeing over this century. Projections show that by 2100, China's population will be lower than it was even in the 1960s. This demographic shift will have massive consequences, not just for China, but globally.
There are a number of things we can talk about now. First of all, look at this article. I want to touch on this one. Population decline will change the world for the better. Wow. Really? And the author, Stephanie Feldstein, her argument is that look at what's going on in China, man. They're not having babies and the population are decreasing. That's an example for us to look at. China? You serious? Wow. There are so many women not having children. There's been some cases, some of them are found in their homes, passed away for days and were uncovered. Nobody knew. Some of them been sitting in the chair for months. Some of their older ladies. No children. So that's the nation we're supposed to emulate. For example, as China grew in population and wealth, so is demand on the planet. I mean, this is a whole article. I think I can post it. You can read it if you want to, if you have the time and the stomach to go through that. But also, according to Press Book, there is what is known as the Malthusian theory, which addresses the idea there's too many people in the world, we don't have enough resources for them, therefore let's get rid of them. It's that simple. Now, the beautiful word for it today is called sustainability. sustainability. Sustainability pressures that resources are finite and that should be used conservatively and wisely with a view to long-term priorities and consequences of the ways in which resources are used. In simple terms, sustainability is about our children, our grandchildren, and the world we will leave them. That's the beautiful definition. But there's another definition. Mr. Middle is going to tell you. As a matter of fact, that same article, population decline will change the world for the better. These are stuff you're going to save on your computer and use them in your sermons. And then show the world what's going on and preach the gospel at the same time. So when you read what they are actually saying, they are connecting the idea of sustainability to population growth as well. So when you hear sustainability, the word you should be listening to is depopulation. Whenever they say sustainability, you might as well translate it as depopulation, because that's exactly what it is. So, here is one. This is Mr. Middle again, and the same argument is true. Too many people in the world, so let's get rid of them. Let's begin here. Disturbing video. And the whole idea is too many people. The whole world is covered like a chessboard, and you can't do the things that you want to do, and so on. So let's get rid of the people. Crazy.
Our chessboard is planet Earth.
This is the first U.S. presentation of an 18-month study of global limits to growth, sponsored by the Club of Rome with Volkswagen Foundation funding, by an international team of 17 scientists at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology under the direction of Dr. Dennis L. Meadows.
During the last year, a group of us at MIT, the principal members of which are with me here today, have been looking at exponential growth of our global social and economic system. We've been led to 5 basic conclusions. There are physical limits to growth, which, given current trends, are very likely to be encountered even during the lifetime of our children. Second, the most likely outcome of running into these limits, if we continue to ignore them and instead base our short-term policies on the assumption of continued growth, is that we'll overshoot those limits and collapse. That won't take place at the same time around the world. Will certainly take different forms. Will be more or less severe in different societies, depending on what happens between now and then and on the level of industrialization. But in each case, it's likely to be extremely traumatic. The third conclusion is that we appear to have a viable alternative to this outcome, one in which population and material production could be brought into balance with the finite environment and with our resources. Fourth conclusion is that it's realistically going to take a period of 50 years, 100 years or more to reach that alternative in an orderly fashion. And finally, and I think this is extremely important, every year we delay beginning to form our goals and moving towards them makes an orderly transition to this stable situation much more difficult, and it decreases our ultimate options.
That means you believe you are God. You believe you are God and in control of humanity. Ain't that a mess? Let me read my Bible. It'll make me sick. We are told in verse 10, the thief cometh not but to steal, to kill, and to destroy. That's the devil's work. That's not the way God operates. I am come, Jesus says, that they might have life, that they might have it more abundantly. God is an author of life. No engineer system that is for the purpose of eradicate human lives. It's not of God. It's that simple. So does that mean we should not be careful how many children we bring to this world? Yes, we should be careful. We should be thoughtful. If we can take care of them, don't bring them here. I agree with that. But if they're already here, let's not cancel them in the womb. And if they're already alive, leave them alone. There's another theory that shows when there's more people in the earth, they are able to reproduce make things happen to sustain the earth. So the powers that be with the money, who are hungry for controlling everything, they cannot be what they are without the population in the first place. But if you get rid of the population, they themselves have no value and significance. So leave it alone. God says, be fruitful and multiply. That's what we are told. So I want to read a few things here. While appearing to the children of men as a great physician who can heal all their maladies, he will bring disease, disasters. You see what Satan is using? For what purpose? Until popular cities are reduced to ruin and desolation. So he uses disease. Even now he is at work in calamities by sea and by land, in great conflagration, in fierce tornadoes and terrible hailstorms, in tempests, floods, cyclones, and tidal waves, and earthquakes in every place and in 1,000 forms. Satan is exercising his power. There you go. He's using destructive weather pattern to bring about destruction on the human race. Today they call it climate change. Well, he sweeps away the ripening harvest, and famine and distress follow. He imparts to the world a deadly taint. Can somebody say pestilence 19? A deadly taint. What was the result? 1,000 perished by the pestilence. Somebody said in the chat, Ellen White is a false prophet. Who cares? Who cares what you say? Because you don't believe. We believe. We believe. And we're not going to close our eyes to the gift that's been given to the church. No false prophets can write like that. The enemy would love to see God's people blind. No, hold on to the testimonies of Jesus now. Don't let these people play with your mind. These visitations are becoming more and more frequent and more disastrous. Destruction will be upon both man and beast. That's what we are told. So he uses disease, disasters. He uses destructive weather pattern. He uses deadly taint, and people are perishing. That's what you see today. Wars to bring about more deaths. That's what we see today. Various means to destroy human lives. Testimony for the Church, Volume 3. What is the true value of the human soul? The true value of the soul can be estimated only by the cross of Calvary. You want to know what man's worth? Look at the cross. Look at Christ and the sacrifice he was willing to make to save humanity. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him shall not perish but have everlasting life. Those who are unconverted, who are unsanctified, will make manifest what manner spirit they are of. Ain't that the truth? Unconverted men cannot value human life. Unsaved men. That's why atheism is such a bad teaching. Once you take away God, you take away human value. Therefore, life becomes anything you can get rid of. Null and void. Depopulate them. Devil's doctrine. They will show by their likes and dislike that their nature feelings are not under the control of a sanctified will. The religion of Jesus Christ is one which will revolutionize the entire man. Need a change of heart. This is what the Bible also says. I am come, said Jesus, that they might have life, that they might have it more abundantly. Thank you for Jesus. I don't know what my life will be without him. The value of the human soul is only to be estimated by the cross of Calvary on which the Son of God died. Therefore, love every man. Protect every man. Preach to every man as much as possible the gospel of Jesus Christ. Have a good one. Bye.